Hello and welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And today we have a special guest here to talk about a special topic. I got my buddy Ryan with me. It's been a long time. I know he wanted to hop on with me and talk some baseball. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Ryan, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, Drew. I'm very excited to be here. Like you said, been a long time coming. But last night some bad stuff happened in the Hall of Fame, which I'm not too typically happy about. I know that you aren't either. So I think we're just going to talk about that real quick, and I think it's going to be a very exciting time.
Yeah, like you said, Hall of Fame voting for the class of 2022 was yesterday, and some surprises that have happened. So, Ryan, you ready to get into it, buddy?
Let's run it, baby.
Damn straight. So, the voting for the BBWAA Hall of Fame class went as such. There was only one member inducted, and that was David Ortiz, getting over 75% of the vote, 77.9% of the vote to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. The longtime Red Sox great makes it in on his first try, first ballot Hall of Famer, and very well deserved. I mean, he had a long career with the Red Sox and Twins, 10-time All-Star, 3 times World Series champion. He leads all designated hitters in career hits, home runs, RBIs, and he was just a clutch man and a hero in the city of Boston. But we're not going to talk too much about Big Papi. We're going to talk about the guys who didn't make it, because there are 2 in particular. It was their last chance to get on the ballot, and those 2 are Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, the 2 capital baseball players of the steroid era, their final chance to get into the Hall of Fame, and they fall short. Up until 6 p.m. when the voting was finalized, they were above that 75% threshold, but they dropped 10% and they missed the cut. So what do you think, Ryan, in the case of Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens? What's your take? Do you think they should be Hall of Famers? Did the BBWAA mess this one up?
Yeah, without a doubt, Drew. I mean, any baseball fan, I think, should typically know that Barry Bonds is the home run king. 762 career home runs. I don't know if anyone's ever going to touch that. He's just been so good. He was so good. And, just doing little steroids really hurt him here. And that's something I want to talk about with just the Hall of Fame ballot people. So since he did steroids, his length of time to be inducted in the Hall of Fame moved from 15 to 10 years. And this was his final year, like you said. And since he didn't make it, a lot of MLB people are not happy about this. Barry Bonds, I mean, when you think of Barry Bonds, you just think of how great of a hitter he was, just how amazing that man was. You don't really think, yeah, people think about steroids. Of course, people are going to think about steroids. But for the most part, he's just a baseball player, and he was a damn good baseball player at that too, man. So I don't understand how this man doesn't make it. It's beyond me. I think that they really messed this one up. I was at a loss of words when I found out that he didn't even touch 70%. I think he needs 75% to get voted into the Hall of Fame. David Ortiz was the only one that had 70 something percent. Obviously, he was over 75. But that's outrageous. And he had 10 years to do this, and he still didn't make it. So, I mean, I guess it is what it is, but I think they really messed this one up too badly.
I mean, it definitely is what it is. But, the legacy, the numbers that both Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens put up cannot be understated. I mean, 7-time National League MVP for Barry Bonds, 7-time Cy Young winner for Roger Clemens. Both had lengthy 20-plus year careers, and both were titans of the game at their position. But because of the steroids, for the baseball writers, they feel that is enough to keep them out. I mean, both Bonds and Clemens got the majority. Bonds got 66% and Clemens got 65.2% of the vote, but it is not enough for that 3/4 in order to get in. And this was it. Their numbers have been rising each and every year. But as far as making the Hall goes in this cycle, it's going to be a long, long, long time before either one of them get inducted. And I think they definitely messed this one up too. Not for the reason that you said. Yes, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens were great baseball players before steroids and especially after steroids. I mean, Barry Bonds, he won his first MVP in 1990, and he was still winning MVPs 10, 13, 14 years later. Roger Clemens, his first Cy Young was in 1986. And then 18 years later, he won his last. I mean, the longevity of these guys cannot be understated. The longevity was definitely lengthened out by the steroids. But as far as steroid users go, I think the only two that you should put in were Bonds and Clemens, and they had an opportunity to do it because they didn't. Because in my opinion, the Baseball Hall of Fame details the story, the history of the game of baseball. And you can't tell the story of the game without the steroid era, without guys like McGwire and Sosa. McGwire and Sosa shouldn't be in. That's a conversation for another day. Sosa didn't even come close. It was his last year on the ballot. I mean, he had 18% of the vote. Sammy Sosa was not getting in, but Bonds and Clemens were the two titans, the hitter and pitcher that defined what the steroid era meant and defined how the steroid era changed the game of baseball. You can't tell baseball story without those two. So I think it's a crime that neither one of them are in the Hall of Fame. If you want to leave out Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Rafael Palmeiro, Jose Canseco, fine. I understand that one. But Bonds and Clemens have to be in.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, when I think of Rocket, I don't think about the thing that shoots up in the sky. I think about one of the best pitchers to ever pitch in the game. I mean, Roger Clemens undoubtedly is one of my favorite all-time pitchers, 100%. And that nickname is just amazing, too, for a pitcher. Like, yeah, Rocket, thanks. But, I mean, I am so starstruck, man. I just can't believe that they did not make the Hall of Fame. I mean, I think majority of the people that are even in the Hall of Fame now, I mean, I talked about it earlier. David Ortiz, he used steroids. I mean, people that are on the Hall of Fame, in the Hall of Fame, did use steroids. Was it a lot of steroids? I don't know. I'm not going to talk about that. But there were people that are currently in the Hall of Fame that did do steroids. And Barry Bonds and Clemens, yeah, they both did it too. But I mean, you can't just, I don't understand, man. 10 years and they still didn't get it voted in. So I just think there might be some biases towards, hey, we're not gonna vote for these guys. I mean, there's just no way. They can have 10 years all they want, but they're just never gonna make it. As David Ortiz, I mean, obviously 1 year and he's on, but David Ortiz just a different fella. And I see you rocking the Red Sox hat. He's a great player for the city of Boston. I mean, heroics he had. I mean, it's amazing, man. I'm happy for him, but it hurts, man. It really hurts that Bonds and Clemens aren't going to be on that list.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely happy for Big Papi, for David Ortiz, that he made it on his first try. I mean, you watch the celebration. Pedro Martinez was right there with him. He was with his friends and family. And that was awesome to see. But like the game of baseball, the fans of baseball are not happy that Bonds and Clemens are out. So I think it begs the question, like, which will be the first like major steroid user to get in? Because I mean, David Ortiz, yes, did test positive for steroids, but as far as like the cardinal steroid users of the 90s and 2000s, Bonds currently locked out, Clemens currently locked out, Alex Rodriguez, he just entered the ballot, Manny Ramirez is on. So who will be like, where does that leave the Hall of Fame going forward with steroids?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I just obviously think that they're going to really crack down on that. I think making that Bonds and Clemens run in, I think that really just shows all MLB fans and MLB players that, hey, they're taking this stuff seriously. And although there is already people in the Hall of Fame that have done it, just don't do it. I mean, I don't understand why baseball players even do it in the first place, but they're really cracking down on that. And I think that to finally make people understand that, they left Bonds and Clemens out of the Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, as if their legacies weren't tarnished enough already. I mean, Barry Bonds, his home run ball is in the Hall of Fame, but there's a giant asterisk imprinted in it anyway. So I understand like the morality of it and the message that they're trying to push, that like if you do steroids and get caught for steroids, like your legacy will be tarnished forever. And as much as like I respect the moral standard that they're upholding, I think you just have to put those two in. My position doesn't change, with the story of the game. I mean, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, even like despite the steroids, they had done things that had, never been seen before. I mean, Roger Clemens won an ERA title at 41, 42 years old, and Barry Bonds, when he was approaching 40, he was still winning MVPs and slugging home runs. I mean, they changed the game, and you have to put players like that change the game for better, or some can make the case for worse, put them in the Hall. They are what defined that era. You got to put them in. So, Ryan, you got any other thoughts about this? Because that's really all I got on this scenario.
I mean, yeah, that's about all I got. I just want to intervene one little idea here, which is completely way out of the rim. But what if Mike Trout did steroids? Would that kill his way of getting into the Hall of Fame? Just think of it like that. Because Barry Bonds was the Mike Trout of his era, if you think about it. And he got kicked out because he used steroids. So if Mike Trout was to use steroids the rest of his career, would he make the Hall of Fame?
No, I don't. No, with the precedent that they set with Bonds, there's no way that if Trout were to test positive for steroids, which, I mean, my God, wouldn't that blow up the game, internet, just the world, right? Mike Trout, the face of baseball, doing steroids. Oh my God, what a thought. How dare you even propose that, Ryan? But no, I mean, you asked that question, if Trout does steroids, is he getting in? No, because if Bonds and Clemens can't get in, nobody can. I mean, I hope they fix the mistake, how they have like the Golden Days committee and like the early era baseball committee. Like, hopefully they fix that in like 30 years. They have like a steroid era committee or something like that, where they put Bonds and Clemens in. But I don't know. It's definitely an interesting thought. And, we all have our own opinions, but I think we're unified in saying that Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, the BBWAA, definitely screwed this up by not putting them in. So I think, that's all we got for today. It was a quick little episode. We wanted to talk some baseball. Ryan, thanks for hopping on and talking some ball with me. I know you got some platforms that you talk sports on. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Around the Waves, which is a KCOU student network radio show that I do with my good buddies Luca Vitale and Ben Schmidt. And that is on Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m.
You got Around the Waves. We already had Luca on, with a hockey episode. Luca was awesome in that. Ryan, you were awesome today. Thank you for hopping on. Hopefully we'll see you again soon. And until next time, we out.